And welcome, everybody.
Hey, everyone.
Hey, welcome to our broadcast tonight. I'm hoping that this went smoothly, but it does look like our audio is on. It looks like our starter thing is off. And it looks like, ta-da, our banner with our name is even on there.
Excellent.
I know. The fact that all happened within the first 30 seconds of the broadcast.
Wayne's World when I say that.
What? Excellent. Party time. Oh, that's really funny. So what's interesting about that is that there are so many pop culture references that you will make from the UK that I have no idea what they are. And there are some that I make from the US that you have no idea what they are.
Yeah.
And
we all know Wayne's
But we all
World.
apparently know Wayne's World. And that is really, really scary to think that both continents know Wayne's World. I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing. What do you think?
Good thing.
Good
Wayne's
thing?
World's good thing, yeah.
Oh, but okay, wait. I
Party
don't know
on,
about that.
Garth.
No, I'm not participating. Although I have to say Dana Carvey, who is Garth, by the way, he is probably one of my favorite comedians of all time. He also did a bit called Turtle that was really bizarre and he's just very bizarre. That's why I liked him. But anyway, moving on. Tonight is about, speaking of turtles and pests and other animals and things, tonight, that's a nice segue there, right?
Yeah.
Tonight is all about inspections.
Ooh.
Don't you just love inspections, Russ?
Actually, I do, yeah.
Because you're a buyer's agent. Of
I'm
course
a
you love
buyer's agent,
inspections.
so I love going to inspections.
Oh, and by the way, I should mention, we have popcorn here tonight.
Yeah.
So I may dip in occasionally. Go ahead.
So,
Sorry.
Yeah, so I look forward to them, because generally if it's my buyers, they're using one of our two favourite people.
Yep, and let's talk about our two favorite people for a couple of seconds.
Yeah.
We'll give them a shout out tonight.
So Marco Celeste at Curb Appeal is one of our favourite inspectors.
Yep.
He's great, does a really thorough job. Very nice guy, will talk you through everything. He'll talk the buyers through, let them know exactly where the shut-off valves are for the gas, the water.
Do you know what I think I like best about
everything.
Marco?
What's
And
that?
kind of with Jason as well, but
Yeah.
Marco is so low key.
Yeah.
He'll point out a defect to people, but he will not make such a big deal that he makes it seem like they should, like, this house is terrible.
He doesn't
it's
make it
horrible.
scary at all.
No,
because he'll generally tell them a solution as well.
exactly. And I
Yeah.
love that about Marco, because he not only shows the problem, but then he lets them know there are
So,
solutions.
yeah, there are solutions. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Get an electrician to fix that, or a plumber to fix that, or
Exactly.
you know.
Exactly.
And Jason's the same. Jason's really good as well.
Yep.
And I like
Jason Geiger from Priority.
from Priority Home Inspections.
Yep.
He's also another good one. And so they're really nice chaps to talk to, you know, and they're very thorough. They both do a really good job, and they're really good with our clients, which is more important.
Which is the most important thing, is how easy they are for clients to work with. And their
They
reports
take lots
are
of
real.
pictures.
Yep.
Yeah, their reports are really easy.
Although I
to
know
understand.
that Marco's looking for a new report system,
Yeah.
because the one he was using was
Is being taken over by another.
well, actually no,
company
they
and
stopped
changed.
supporting it.
Yeah.
They stopped using it or supporting it or something. So it got bought out by a company, and then the company shut it down because they
Yeah.
have their own home inspection report that they want to use, and it's not as good as, at least Marco doesn't like
No.
it. So, and Jason was using the same one, so I do kind of wonder what they're using now, because it's been like about a month now. But Marco, Jason, excellent home inspectors, always write clear reports, always make it really obvious, and
always open to
super
a phone
helpful.
call if you didn't understand something.
Absolutely.
You wasn't absolutely clear on where that defect is.
Yep.
Because sometimes they'll take a picture of a beam in the attic and you don't know where it was. I don't climb up in the attic. So,
Right, exactly.
But he'll tell you, oh, yeah, that one's at the front, or, you know, wherever
exactly.
it is.
Exactly.
So that's really good.
Yeah, that's very helpful. Both Marco and Jason are great at doing that. So.
And they love explaining stuff. You know, they love answering questions that our clients may have. So, you know, they put our clients at ease, and they're willing to answer all their questions as well. They prefer them to ask questions.
Well, that's the thing, is they would rather people have knowledge than anything else.
Yeah.
So Jason and Marco, great. And if you want to you can always contact us if you need their number. We are happy to provide that for you.
Yep.
We have an email we can send out, and sometimes I've provided it even for other agents.
Isn't it on our website?
They are on our website at tamthomes.com.
Yeah. So
tamthomes.com, and under preferred partners is what it is.
So you can go on there and find their details and
go straight to their website.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yep.
So you can always do that as well, which is kind of sort of awesome.
Yeah.
So I like that.
So I like the other reason is I like to go to home inspections, and the reason why a buyer's agent probably prefers it than a listing agent is because the listing agent, what are they going to find out?
Yeah, we're always a little
nervous.
But
the buyer's agent is, let's see how good this house is.
Yeah.
And we're looking, and
9 times out of 10, when you sell one of my listings, they're usually pretty good.
They're normally pretty good, yeah.
Yeah, there's very little you have to ask for on my listings, right?
No, that's correct.
Mostly because I go through them ahead of time.
You do.
And
I wish all agents were the same.
Yeah.
That they did the same things. But Kimberly will go through before she lists it and tell the seller
the things that they might want to fix.
They might want to fix.
Things that will pop up on inspections.
There still could be things that pop up because obviously Kimberly doesn't check the electrical, the plumbing.
I'm not an electrician. I'm not a plumber.
But
I can't get into
the majority
a pipe.
of stuff she will say, like, if there's no GFCIs, put GFCIs in. If there's,
chipping,
a bulb
peeling
blown,
paint.
Change that bulb.
If there's
make
chipping,
sure
peeling
that
paint on the
working.
outside.
If a light isn't working, for instance, just say you want to get that fixed before we put it on the market. And so it makes things a lot easier because a lot of that stuff is then already taken care of before you even see the house, let alone before you have an inspection.
Right.
So when the inspection comes along, it might be a couple of little minor things, like an ungrounded outlet or a reverse polarity, which it would take 5 minutes for not even that, for a qualified electrician to fix.
Yep, exactly. So it's really nice if those things are already fixed.
Yeah.
But we're going to talk about what they are in the offer, because there's a difference between inspections and testings, and there's all sorts of different inspections and different tests that we can run.
Yes.
So let's kind of go to the offer, actually, and let's see what the offer says as far as what's allowed. So first of all, inspections and testings. Buyer may only conduct inspections or testing if specified in this part of the offer. And an inspection is defined as an observation of the property. Now, what's interesting about that is that it's defined as an observation of the property, which means what is a test and how is it different? Russ, what do you know about that? Because I know you do know a lot about that. What's the difference between a test? I'll put you on the spot. What's the difference between a test and an inspection?
Well, an inspection is a general inspection to check if things are wrong, if there's a defect, but they're not qualified to change it. They're not an electrician.
Nope, that's
or
not
anything
true.
Like that.
Nope, that's not the difference between
Okay,
an inspection and a test. The difference between an inspection and a test is an inspection
gets sent away to test.
No, a test removes or has a sample of something. So to test something,
like mold,
to actually do a test, you grab a sample and you either send it away or it's that sample is analyzed. Whereas an inspection and it can be an electrician's inspection, so that can be an inspection even if it's an electrician. But an actual test means you have to take a sample of the property and send it away or have a professional right there test it.
If you thought it was asbestos and you was frightened that it may be asbestos, the only way of telling is to have it tested.
Now, here's the thing, though. In the offer to purchase, and this is where, as a listing agent, I know this definitely, is that in the offer to purchase, you cannot do a test without specific written permission. So if somebody comes into the house and they think there might be mold, or they think they might want to have radon sampling taken, or they think they might want to test for lead-based paint, they have to get permission before they do it.
Yeah.
And that's really important because sometimes I've actually had, and I would say radon is probably the most common one where I've had this happen.
Yeah, because a lot of home inspectors will actually do the radon test, whereas they don't do the other test. They have to call in a specialist to do those. But an actual home inspector, a lot of them do carry the equipment or can get hold of the equipment to carry out a radon test. So when you book your
when you write your offer.
Yes, but a lot of people, it's when they book their home inspection with the home inspector will ask you, do you want radon? How much is it? I don't. $100. Well, yeah, I could do that.
I'll do it radon.
But they don't realise if it's not in the offer,
they can't do it.
They can't do it.
Nope. Which is why it's more important to talk about testing when you are sitting and writing your offer, instead of when you talk to your home inspector. It's not about your home inspector. You should be talking to your agent. Now,
I've had it where I've spoken to the client and told them, "Do you want a radon test?"
Here's what it'll do to your offer.
Yeah, it will weaken your offer because, if you want a really strong offer, then don't put it in. You can always have it done afterwards.
Well, and especially in markets like this spring where houses were selling like hotcakes. I mean, there were people who were waiving full-on inspections. Nothing we would recommend. That is nothing that we would ever recommend to our clients.
Although I did have one that did.
No, you had one that made that choice for themselves, but you didn't recommend it.
No. Certainly
it
not.
was their choice.
They actually signed a waiver with me to say that I had told them it wasn't a good idea, but they agreed to do it. So.
Yeah, it's crash printed into the Shore West document, but then you would add in an additional line as well, just to make it super clear that you told them that they should get a home inspection, and they made the choice not to.
Yep. But they did get the house, so
they got the house, and that was one of the things, but it is never something that we as agents will ever advise you to do. And part of the reason for that is because I am not qualified to tell you whether that house is properly, like if the inspection would be good or not. I'm not a qualified home inspector.
Because how many times do we find things out at the inspection that we had no idea there was a problem there?
Right, absolutely.
We get that all the time because I don't climb up on roofs.
What? You don't climb roofs? You're not Santa Claus?
I may be big, but I'm not Santa Claus. I'm scared of heights for a start. So, no, I do not climb up on the roof. I do not check the chimneys.
Nope.
I do not climb in the attic and check the attic out. So,
and that's partly because, you are not of a small stature, and some of these attic openings are not very big.
No.
In fact, there have been times in Marco, who's definitely slimmer than you, has had a hard time getting more than his head up into them. Because you got to get your shoulders through, too. And that's really your problem, is you got these broad shoulders. So.
And I'm not an inspector, so.
That's the other reason.
That's what they're paid for. That's what you pay them the money for. They do all that, and they have the expertise to know whether there's something wrong or not.
Absolutely. So that's part of it.
So what are other tests that we can do? There are radon tests.
So many. Okay, so there's so many tests. So let's list some of them. There's radon testing. That's very common.
Yep.
There is lead-based paint testing, which is highly uncommon because a lot of sellers, if a buyer were to ask for a lead-based paint test, would just reject the offer.
Yeah.
They would just say no, because if lead-based paint is found, the remediation can be very expensive, and really the key is you just don't want to have
prohibitive, so you don't
the way you avoid a problem with lead-based paint. It has nothing to do with breathing. It has everything to do with eating, like ingesting it into your stomach. So really the way to avoid lead-based paint poisoning is you don't eat the paint chips. And so as long as you keep kids and adults as well away from eating paint, lead-based paint is not as dangerous in some ways. So, but it can be very costly to remediate. So we've got radon, we have lead-based paint, we have, a very common one that most sellers would accept would be well testing.
Well testing,
because Wisconsin state law requires it.
Yeah, if the house has a well, so you don't just want the water tested, you also need the whole well system tested
Correct.
as well to make sure that that's up and running correctly. Then there's also, if you're on a well, sometimes you might have a septic.
That's another very common one.
So they have to test the septic.
Yep.
Um,
Let's take a look at this right here. This is actually the addendum A right here. And let me pull this down for a second to see if it's...
there's asbestos and mold.
Asbestos, mold, other substances, things of that nature. Oh, I clicked the wrong button there.
Yep.
Let me go. There we go. So we've got asbestos, mold, well water testing there. Oh, goodness. There's like all sorts of different things that you can test for. Let's see here. Radon. Radon's now a separate thing. Asbestos, mold, and other substances or conditions that may affect the health of the occupants. And of course, you've got well water testing, as we talked about, and like you said, septic system. This is the addendum A, so you can see some of these in here. It talks about now. Here's the private water system, or basically sewer, the septic or mound system. That a lot of people have when they're out in the county, especially. But there's another right in. Actually, here it is. There's another one. VA mortgage wood destroying insect inspection.
Yes.
Now, this is not something that we've always had in Wisconsin, and in fact, that's kind of a recent addition to our Wisconsin contracts.
It's only about a year.
It's been about 2 to 3 years, actually.
Is it?
Yeah, it's been about 2 to 3 years since that came in, but that's pretty new when you think about real estate in Wisconsin.
Yeah, and it used to just be this quite a few southern states that
well,
would
it
have
started
that
like in
to do with
Florida with termites and things
stuff like that.
But then we had the ash borer.
We had the ash borer and other insects, and so VA has decided there's certain areas, and there is an actual map of the areas that if you live in or you're thinking of purchasing.
And that's across the
area,
states. You can see across the states. You can see that map.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, Wisconsin is now one of those states. I think partly because of the ash borer. That's one of the reasons why we fall into that category. There may be western states that are not. So we've got the pest inspection. Radon's another really common one. When do we test or not test?
And when they say pest inspection, they're not worried about mice and things like that.
Well, we should be. Okay, speaking of inspections.
Wood boring insects.
I think you need to tell the story of the house that you showed Julietta and her husband when they were looking to upgrade their home.
Oh.
I think you need to talk about that.
Yeah, that one had pests in the attic.
Speaking of pests.
Big pests. We're talking raccoons.
Were there actually raccoons there?
Yeah. They were all in. There was a big family of raccoons.
No, I mean, did the inspector actually see the raccoons when he put his head up there, or?
No, but he found all the feces and everything like that. Yeah,
big mounds of it.
Yeah.
Ugh, that was so gross. And the inside of that house looked immaculate. That's what was so bizarre.
The house itself looked really good, apart from a little bit of uneven floors.
But it was an old house, so that's kind of normal.
But it had been really done up nice, and apart from once he got on the roof, there was a part of the roof that needed some work doing to it, and that's where the raccoons have been getting in and
had made a home.
They'd made it their home. Yeah.
And it was amazing that you couldn't smell it down into
family.
it was a 3-family, I think. Wasn't it actually already 2-family? I don't remember.
No, it was a single family.
It was a single family, but it became a 2-family.
Yeah.
Yeah. I was just like, wow, that's just incredible and awful when you think about it, because it didn't smell in the house except for when he went up into the attic. So the family couldn't even have known necessarily. I mean, obviously they might have heard things up there, but they wouldn't have known.
Yeah.
So that's why we got our gutter all fixed this year, because we had a space where small things could get in. Nothing as big as raccoons, thankfully, but we needed to get that sealed up so we could get rid of any pests that we had. But yeah, so pest inspections, though, the VA is not talking about pests like squirrels or birds, or because that's really common too. Sometimes birds building a nest under an eave and things like that.
It's pests that will eat away at the foundations of your property.
At the wood is what it is.
At the wood. Mm-hmm. So if you've got wood boring insects and stuff like that, then it can you know.
Well, it can chew away at the joists and
Yeah.
the main beams. If you have wooden beams and you have wooden joists in your house, like we do.
Yeah, and then
I mean, that's what we've got.
can weaken the structure of your property.
Exactly.
So that's what they're interested in.
Yeah, absolutely. So now let's talk about another really common test, which is radon. So
Yeah.
why don't you tell people what is radon first
So
of all?
radon is a gas that comes out of the ground. It's in the air we breathe. Typically, it's in pockets, so it's not everywhere. And it's even certain times of the year. So you could test a house and it could be clear, and then next week you test it again and it could be high. So there's no rhyme nor reason for it.
Well, it does seem to be weather dependent.
It generally comes up through the sump pump areas in the basement, and because basements are not aired, they're not open.
Yeah, if you don't
have the windows open.
If you don't have a basement like ours that's old and drafty, then it's really a problem.
We don't have any door on our basement. It feeds straight out, and then we have patio doors at the back. But if you've got a lot of people have a basement where they shut it in, they shut the door.
Well, and also the newer
no windows are open.
The newer basements are better sealed in that they're better constructed. They're newer, so the whole house is sealed up nice and tight, and that's
so
the main
radon
reason.
gets trapped in that area.
Right, exactly.
Now, is that dangerous? Well, not always.
There's different opinions on that.
But if you're going to spend a lot of time down there, so if you're going to finish your basement and you're going to use it as a rec room where you may spend, 6 to 8 hours a day down there, you might want to put a bedroom down there. Then we would always recommend that you have radon mitigation, a radon test. Now the test typically costs about $100.
100 to 150.
Yeah. And that
mitigation,
would tell you
and
if
mitigation
it's,
costs
if
between
it's a high
1,000.
level.
Mitigation costs between about 1,000 to 1,500, depending on the size of the house and what they have to do too.
And basically, what they do is they stick a stack down that goes to the outside, and it has a fan attached to it. And sometimes the fans are on the exterior of the house. They do like a 4-inch pipe that runs, PVC pipe that runs to that is then sealed into the crock of your sump pump, so you get a sealed head on it. Then, and it acts like a vacuum, so it sucks the air out and pushes it outside.
Because this is a naturally occurring gas that we all breathe every day, so there are levels of it which are safe. But the EPA recommends that anything that is 4 picoliters or higher needs mitigation. That's that's the EPA standard, and that's the standard in Wisconsin for real estate as well. The Wisconsin has adopted that. Now in every state they can make different rules on that, but the EPA standard is 4.0. Now obviously if you live in other states, not in Wisconsin,
and we see the readings where it fluctuates greatly throughout the day. Don't we? We see the graphs when it comes back, and after the testing,
when they do the digital version,
do the digital version, we can see the graphs at certain times of the day where it goes higher.
I mean, we've seen sometimes on some of our properties where it goes as high as 12, but then it drops as low as 1. And it just kind of has that real flux and flow to it. So the question is, how long does it stay at 1? How long does it stay at 12? I mean, if it stays at 12 for an hour, but it stays at 1 for 5 hours, then we're still under that 4 picoliters or PCI. I don't know if it's picoliters or what, but I think it's picoliters, PCI per liter, and that seems to be okay. Now, like you said, it's used more when you have finished space in your basement. Because if you have an unfinished basement,
there's no real need for it. It's generally, if you're going to be spending a lot of time in your basement, then you would want it because it is cancerogenic. It can cause cancer.
Well, some people, it is believed to cause cancer. See, the problem with cancer is that, I mean, there are people who smoke their entire lives and never get cancer, never get lung cancer. And there are people who smoke till they're 30 and end up with their lungs and their mouth and their throat. And so there are definitely genetic things involved as well.
And there are people that have never smoked in their life that get cancer.
That get lung cancer, right. So it's... So
there's
it
no
is
rhyme nor reason for that.
correct,
either.
and radon is related to lung cancer and breathing and the breathing type cancers. So if you have that tendency in your family as well, if you have that genetic predisposition, you might want to, even if the basement's not being used a lot, just because you have that genetic tendency
to put it in. If you,
but I know
this
spring again when there were people who were missing out on properties, we had to tell people, look, you can do it. You can ask the seller to do a radon test. Like, you'd be paying for it, but you can ask the seller for permission. But if a seller has a choice of 2 contracts and one is asking for radon and one is not, seller's going to go for the one that's not asking for the extra testing.
Because the chances are, if there is radon, it's going to cost them an extra $1,000 off the top.
Right.
So
now, however, it depends on what your offer is, because I've also had some buyers who have said, yeah, we're going to offer, because we know that it's like $1,500 more. If it has to be up to $1,500 to mitigate it, we're going to offer the seller $2,000 more so that we can give the right to do this test.
Yeah.
And that way it gets wrapped into the mortgage, not necessarily out of pocket money.
Yeah.
So.
And you know, I've spoken to clients and I said, look, it will weaken your offer if you ask for it. That's not to say we can't ask for it.
And if it's important to you, if it's important to you,
it's important to
we
them,
absolutely should put it in.
Absolutely. Or the other way you can do it is you can ask the home inspector to do it after you close.
Yeah.
And they will normally do it at the same price, because obviously if they're just coming out for that, the price normally goes up. But if you book it at the same time as your inspection, they will generally do it at that bargain price, that
right,
lower
they'll do it at
price,
that little bit
because
discount.
you booked it at the same time. You
Right.
did your home inspection with them. They will let you still have that discount, even if it's going to be a month or 2 later.
But see, the nice thing about radon is that radon can be mitigated.
Yes.
And there are companies out there, like one of my favorites, Radon Remedy, who actually guarantees it. So basically, once they put their mitigation system in, they do a retest to see, is this working? And the retest isn't done by them per se.
No, they actually leave they leave you a kit, and it's a charcoal kit.
Yep.
And with the instructions, and you
set it up,
you set
and
it
then
up.
it gets sent. Then you send it off where it's already prepaid.
Yeah.
You send it off to a laboratory and wait for the results to come back. And if the results do not come back showing that it's been mitigated, Radon Remedy will come back and they will make sure that it's done. They will make sure it's fixed. They will make sure it's working, etc. So while radon can be scary for people, it's completely fixable.
Oh yeah, definitely.
And there are a lot of websites out there that make it seem like it's not.
Job to do.
Yeah. I've even seen people who have done it themselves.
Yeah, so have I.
Who are very handy and understand the mechanics of it, and they've actually made homemade ones that worked quite effectively. So it just depends on who you are and how handy you are. Now let's talk about another type of testing that is another very popular, very common one. Do you know what I'm talking about? Or what I was about to go to?
Is it the black stuff?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's the Black Plague.
Yes.
It's not always black, though. That's the funny thing. That's what's interesting. So we're going to talk about mold. So first of all, there's a couple of things that I think people should know.
Organic growth.
Yeah, I think there's a couple of things that people need to know about mold. First of all, we actually had a really cool training on mold. We had a mold expert come into our office and taught us a bunch of things about mold. And one of the most important things that I thought it really stuck with me that he said was that if you can smell it, then it's not mold.
Yeah.
It's actually mildew. Because mold, or at least the dangerous dangerous ones, do not smell. It's mildew that smells, not mold. And the mold spores that are really dangerous don't smell at all, even when you're right up next to them.
Yeah.
And I thought that was really interesting, because a lot of people will walk into a house that's musty and they'll be like, oh, it's got mold in here. And we're like, no, that's mildew. And mildew, you can just go get Clorox and clean mildew.
Oh, yeah.
But you cannot just go get Clorox and clean mold. not real true mold.
No, that has to be treated chemically by professionals normally.
By professionals, absolutely. Well, technically speaking, you can treat mold yourself. However, in a real estate transaction, I would never accept that for my buyers, and I would tell my sellers that that's not acceptable either as mitigation.
There are companies out there.
It puts them at risk. It puts them at risk legally.
Yeah, because if it comes back in a year's time or 6 months' time, then they're going to be after you to come and do it again.
Yeah, because they will come after you. It is definitely something that you can be sued over. So sellers definitely hire professionals. But here's the good news, is that in Wisconsin, we actually have a lot of houses with mold.
Mm-hmm.
But where is the mold? It's generally in our attics.
Yeah.
And if you have mold in an attic, it is so easy to take care of.
Yep.
And when I say easy, I mean it will cost you more to put in a new furnace or a new AC than it will cost you to have your entire attic mold mitigated.
Yep.
Which is because people make because unfortunately Homes on Homes made such a big deal about a house that he did. Oh, I don't know. What was that? Like 10 years ago or something. He had this mold-ridden house where the whole house had mold all throughout the walls and everything. Well, first of all, the second thing that I learned from that mold guy that came in and educated us was that mold grows up.
Yeah.
So if the mold is in the basement, then that's a problem. Yeah. Then you have a really big problem.
That means you've got a leaky basement and
it's growing up, which means it could be in your walls, and then you are talking big time money.
Yes.
Because then all of the walls have to be pulled out of your house. You have to check everything, etc.
And generally that's after a flood's occurred in the basement. It may be a flood or something like that, and it hasn't been taken care of straight away afterwards.
Or sometimes it gets into the walls because people have a leaky window and they never had a restoration company come in right away. See, that's the thing, is that if you have a leaky window that gets fixed, you really should contact a restoration company to make sure that that area got completely dried out and treated before a new window gets put in. Because that is what causes mold to grow in walls. That's one of the biggest causes of it. But honestly, the most common cause of mold in a house is in the attic, in Wisconsin anyway. And it's because of, why is that?
Vent the vent fan from the shower in your bathrooms, they're not vented properly. They have to be vented to the outside. You can't just put it through the ceiling and forget about it. It has to go to the outside, through one of the eaves, through the soffit.
Because if you just put that tube up into your attic, then what you're doing is you're blowing warm, moist air straight into your attic. And then it hits the decking on the underside of your roof, and it condenses.
And then stays
and then your attic gets warm again. And
warm through the summer with the sun beating down on it. And another reason of why people get mold in bathrooms is because they don't always turn the fan on, or they don't leave them on for long enough. So they'll turn it on, they'll jump in the shower, have their shower, and then switch it off with the light. And so therefore it hasn't had a chance to get rid of all that moist air.
And sometimes that's just mildew when it's in an actual bathroom. But more often than not, it might even be mildew when it's up in an attic. But more often than not, they're going to mitigate it just to make sure. Because they want to make sure it's not something big, bad, and scary.
But you can have it tested if you want to see if it's mildew or mold. And that's quite expensive. Most of the experts, the guys that we call out on because on average it's going to cost you
what
they're talking about, and
it's going to cost you $600 to get it tested, and maybe $1,800 to get it mitigated. Well, okay, first of all, a clean attic never hurt anybody. Even if it's just mildew, it's great to have somebody come in and kill that all off and clean it all up for you. That's not an expensive price, because it will help your decking, even if it was just mildew and not dangerous mold. The other thing that's interesting, I think, is that people think that mold has to be black mold for it to be dangerous. And it's not just black mold that's dangerous. There's actually white molds that are dangerous just as much. There's all different colors. There's white, there's black, there's green. Because, like I said, Homes on Homes had this big thing, and he kept talking about black mold. It's not the most or any, like, mold is dangerous anyway, and it's the spores that are dangerous. So even when these guys go up there, they get fully kitted out in these outfits.
They have respirators.
They have special respirator masks.
Yeah.
They look a little bit like they're in hazmat suits, but a little bit easier to move around in hazmat suits.
Yeah.
Because they don't want to be breathing that stuff in either.
No.
Nor do they want to breathe in the
They
chemicals.
don't breathe in the spray either.
The chemicals that they have to use to destroy it. So, yeah. So, I mean, that's kind of where we're at with testings. I mean, we've got so many different kinds of testings. If you want to know more about testings, go ahead and give us a call, and we'll be happy to talk to you about it.
Yeah.
But we've actually gone for ages tonight.
Oh, wow.
It feels like. What time is it?
It
is already
7:35.
And here we were trying to get things like faster and stuff. That didn't work. Did we have anybody in the chat tonight, Russ?
No one in the chat. We have 2 people
watching
one on your Facebook and one on
YouTube. Thank you for those who are watching on YouTube and Facebook. So we had people there watching, which is great, but nobody in the chat tonight, which is fine. But if you have any questions,
left a comment. So, but we still look at these comments even
absolutely
afterwards. So.
Absolutely. So if you drop a comment below, we will see it and we will respond to it. Might take us 24 hours, but we'll be happy to. Or if you want to just give us a call, I'm going to throw up our contact details on the screen here at the end. But thanks so much for joining us tonight, guys, and hopefully you've learned a little bit more about inspections and testings. And a lot of these inspections and testings are across the country. So talk to your local agent.
And they're not that scary.
And they're not.
If you get a good inspector, they're on your side. They're working for you. And they would give you as much advice as you want. The only thing they can't do is price up a job.
They can't give you a price for a job unless they're the kind of person who does that
say
job.
It's going to cost this much.
Well,
to
Jason
fix
can.
It, but they'll give you a ballpark
Only
figure.
Jason can, but only about concrete.
Only concrete, yeah.
Because Jason has a concrete business as well. So anyway, guys, thanks so much for joining us tonight. Have a great day and a great Labor Day weekend this weekend.
Yeah, it's Labor Day weekend this weekend.
It is. It is.
Why not send us some pictures of what people are doing on Labor Day weekend? That would be fantastic.
That would be fun.
Yeah, and we'll put some pictures on our Facebook as well. Of what we get up to over the weekend and see who has the best time.
Oh, we will. Although I think we're going to do a lot of painting.
Yeah. So we might get out on the boat. So that
we are. Good. We are going to get out on the boat, unless the weather says no. We are getting out on the boat. So, anyway, guys, have a great Labor Day weekend, and thanks for joining us. And we will see you again next week.
Yeah.
Bye for now.
Bye.